This is Team Harrow, where resilience meets leadership. I'm your host, Ben Harrow, combat veteran, special forces soldier, and entrepreneur. Each week, we dive into powerful stories from high performers who lead, adapt, and overcome. Let's get after it. All right, 3, 2, 1, launch. And we're back.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Episode 2.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again. How you been?
Good, man. Still Florida, still hot, still trying to get around.
I mean, the traffic's better. All the snowbirds are gone and school's out.
That's true.
So we got that going for us, which is nice.
So back to the Reset series. I know the first episode, it was more of like an overall introduction, very broad stroke about what the Reset series is going to be about and why it's important to us and kind of like our blueprint and, who Optimal Wellness Group is and tapping into them with some of their support services to tell our stories, from a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, like is kind of like our big four belief on that. But I thought that this episode, we could dive more into our kind of like physical like baseline before we start to get more into like the medical science of it, and then adding peptides and testosterone and all the other goodies.
Super
and stuff.
blue-green algae. Brazilian rainforest.
What was
nuts.
it when they were talking about salmon sperm for like moisturizing on our face?
No, I'm good, bro. Yeah. I'm good. I'm good.
Which I'm still very curious how they extract the salmon sperm.
It's a little dark room, it's sort of dimly lit, and they're playing mood music to get the salmon in the mood. I don't even want to know, man.
That's someone that we'll have to bring the salmon sperm guy on here to talk about that one time.
Sure, why not?
Still very curious about that. But yeah, let's
going there already.
Yeah, I'm curious. We talked about it. We're same but different with our backgrounds, and both athletes and come from a special operations type of world.
Yep.
You're a little bit older than me, but we're still both, I think, from just a very optic standpoint, like in shape looking people. What is it that you do day to day to maintain and perform?
Gotcha.
What is like your routine?
Yeah, good question. So I think for me, if you look at the whole picture of what it takes to be feeling well physically, it probably starts with diet and nutrition, and then obviously exercise is important. And with diet and nutrition, I include hydration. And then with exercise, we'll talk about that. And then I think there's a few other little things like sleep that play into that equation as well, because I think that they're all components. And it's difficult to take away one of those components from that picture and still have, complete.
And I'm sure, like, I would love for people to take away from this that are listening, like, oh shit, that's interesting that Dan does that, or I never thought about that, or Ben does this. Like, what are like some cheat codes that I think that you do, nutrition wise, exercise wise? Like, obviously drink water, got it. Everybody knows to hydrate, but like, what are things that you do that people are like, oh shit, I never thought about that. I'm gonna try and implement that in my life.
Let's kick this back and forth a little bit. Let's start with food and nutrition, right? Yeah. So I think there's the big picture, and we can drop down from 10,000 feet and zoom on in. And I have cheat codes too. We talked about that earlier. So I think that there's a couple different mindsets on what works well for people, and I know what works well for me, and I'm curious to hear what works well for you. It's usually, for me, from a food standpoint, 3 meals a day. Portion control is always important. We'll talk about macros a little bit and why that's important, and what does that mean, and do people pay attention? I've never really been somebody I was never a bodybuilder, so I don't measure the grams and I don't weigh my food, but I do know my wife's German, and I told you when we were on vacation over the holidays, I lost weight when we were in Berlin, because in Europe, people eat what we consider to be regular, healthy size portions of food, like when you're in Italy.
Yeah.
So I think portion control is important. So when I do a breakfast, it's pretty boring. I'm a big fan of chia seeds, so I make my own chia pudding, and I use almond milk. I have an app that I use. It's kind of a cheat code as well. It's the Yuka app. We're not sponsored by Yuka. It's not a plug.
Not yet. We're not sponsored by Yuka yet.
But we're here and we're available if you guys want to talk to us.
We have a spot on here for you.
And I look so funny, man, because I'll be in the grocery store, and I've got a grocery store cheat code as well, but It used to take me 10 minutes. I'd run into Publix, I'd run into Whole Foods, I'd grab what we needed, and I'd be back out the same day. Now it takes a little bit longer because what I've learned about foods in this country, and that's something else we'll talk about with this whole Make America Healthy Again agenda, is that things that you would think are nutritious and healthy for you, maybe because it says organic or all natural, they might not actually be that good for you or healthy at all because of the sugar content or because of the additives that are in the food or the things that are used to make that food. Obviously, we live in this country that is geographically massive, right? So if a nutrition bar is made in Maine, which is my home state, how does it get to Florida, and how does it stay fresh and healthy? Maybe I'm better off getting a FroPro bar, which is made locally.
Yeah.
And, so there's additives in it and there's preservatives. And so one of the reasons I use this app that I told you about is because I don't necessarily know everything that's in the ingredients, meaning if I see monosodium phosphate, dodecahydrate, dextrose, whatever, I don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah.
But this app that I scan the UPC barcode with is going to give me a score from 0 to 100. And obviously the higher the score, the cleaner it is and the better it is for you. And if it's not something that's good for you, it'll tell you why. It will say, hey, it has these additives, which have been known to cause cancer in lab rats. It's probably not something I want to put into my body. So, when it starts with the foods that I eat, I'll make a week's worth of chia puddings on a weekend, and I'll use some healthy steel rolled oats and some organic chia seeds, and I'll use there's a particular brand of almond milk that I like. I'll make 5 or 6 of those. Then in the morning when I'm ready to eat them, I'll grab a handful of blueberries or some organic fresh fruit, and usually I'll put a little bit of organic raw honey on top of that for the health benefits of raw honey. And something like that, it's a pretty small portion, but that's enough to make me feel like it's okay to start my day. What I'm getting out of that is the protein that's in the almond milk and some of the protein that's in the chia seeds. And then I'm also building a macro portfolio for what's coming into my body with the fruit and with the oat that's in there as well. So that's how I'll start my day. We'll have a supplement talk later, maybe, but my wife's the expert on this. I don't want to pretend I know everything that I take. I think I've got about maybe 12 supplements now that are in my supplement routine. Most of them have been blessed by the homeopathic doctor that we work with down in Boca, who's an expert on these types of things. We've done a lot of the research on the other things, but it's pretty simple. It's 4 fish oils. Nordic Naturals happens to be the brand I like, but it's a good, clean fish oil.
Because you're Finnish.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Thank you. A CoQ10. I've got something that I take that is for, it's called Macu Sport. Our optometrist recommended it. It's what professional athletes that are pitchers use because it helps with their vision. And I need reading glasses. And as I've grown older, I've learned that, that helps me. I've got a probiotic in there that's part of the routine, and a few other essential things that are good for things like inflammation as well. That's kind of my morning routine. That's also usually when I get my first dose of hydration in the day. So my goal for my hydration is to drink my body weight in water. For me, I like to get that in as quickly as I can. So before noon is great, and then the rest of the day I'm just adding or supplementing that. My lunch routine is pretty boring. We talked about this earlier too. When we're traveling, it may be different. So if I'm traveling, I may use that time like you to also do some intermittent fasting. For me, I like it more than 12 hours, but I find that 18 for me is kind of the max because I'm usually hangry after about 18 hours of intermittent fasting. But if I'm having lunch, that's also kind of boring. I try and mix up and get the right portfolio of the macros that I need for me. So something like an avocado toast is a pretty common lunch for me, where I'll use some of the eggs that have gotten really expensive now.
Yeah.
Some of the free range, organic, grass fed, where the chickens get to run around and they're not, cooped up.
Yeah, they live happy lives before you slaughter them.
Exactly. Yeah. And something like that. And then for dinner, it's the same thing, right? It's back to portion control. And so healthy, clean proteins, the healthiest ones we can get. In our house, it happens to be a lot of turkey and chicken products because those are the cleanest ones for us. And then around those, we like to do a lot of greens, and sweet potatoes are in our diet a lot. Things like edamame, broccoli, asparagus, other leafy greens that we might not be getting throughout the rest of the day. I probably should do a better job of knowing the caloric intake of what I'm doing, if I'm being honest with you, from a managing my weight standpoint. But I don't do that as well. And then we talked a little bit about alcohol, which we'll get into later, but it's now just more of a social aspect of my life. I don't not drink, but I don't drink very often.
Yeah, you don't like kind of chase it. Like you were saying before, like you don't go out of your way to buy alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have we have alcohol in the house that was gifts from friends, and we have, some wine and a very nice wine fridge that I bought a long time ago when I used to drink a lot more than I do now. So it's there, but it used to be for me that, I had wine with every meal, and it wasn't uncommon for me to have a cocktail or two after that meal as well. So that's not really a part of my life anymore. But that from a nutrition standpoint, that's what I do. I'm not really a cheap meal guy. So I'm not looking to go out and binge eat and knock back a couple pizzas or burgers or fries or anything like that on the weekend.
I think also you realize as you get older, your body just can't process it the same, right? Like I feel like as a younger kid, and this isn't science. I mean, it's science, but it's so obvious and stupid to say it. But you just can't eat like you did when you're a kid. Like my kids, they throw down burgers. Not that we're feeding them burgers all the time, but like, as you get older, you just realize, like, man, I just can't eat the same way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's something to be aware of. I want to take a little interesting tangent, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
Okay.
What was you talked about it. I say let's just dive into it.
Sure.
What was kind of like your alcohol battle?
Oh, man, it's such a long story. So I think that one of the things we have in common with our shared military past is, regardless of the branch of service that you're in, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, all the other National Guards, everybody that serves this country. For me, in the era that I was in, I think consuming alcohol and drinking was just a part of that life, right? I mean, for you?
Yeah.
Like, it's the weekend, we're going to the...
You go to the bar, it's a social thing.
Yeah.
Like in the team room, usually there's beers in the fridge in the team room, and like the team sergeant will like kind of like put the beer light on and be like, all right, it's 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. You guys can
it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. So alcohol is just kind of part of the culture, right? And, having all these former SF guys now, are like creating bourbons. It is just part of
your life.
It's part of your life.
It's part of the culture.
Yeah.
I think it's used as a crutch, and I think, unfortunately, I think it's wrongly so, but it's used as a crutch to kind of like, hey man, I had a shit day, I got to decompress, and boom, you just reach for the bottle, and it is a depressant, right? So you kind of get this instant, whew, okay, that feels good.
One of my teammates, we were talking about like PTSD and stressful situations. He's like, hey dude, you just got to use the brown to bury it down, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's really the preferred method to be drinking.
It doesn't go anywhere.
To like suppress these stressful like situations and emotions. Yeah. Because it's going to come out eventually.
So I think, so it starts with, it was always just kind of there, right? So that was half of my career, or a significant portion of my career, being enlisted and then commissioned officer. Alcohol was always there. I know that I never had an issue with alcohol while I was in the service, but I was married for a while, and I think when I moved to South Florida, which was 20-something years ago, alcohol was just a part of our lives. I don't think for a long time, I don't think I had an issue with drinking then. We were members of a couple beach clubs in this area, right? So you go to these beach clubs on the weekend. It's lunchtime. Everybody's knocking back a few drinks, and then maybe you'll get a drink and take it down to the beach with you. So I think alcohol was always present in my life, but why it's not present to the extent that it used to be even back then was because I went through a period of time where I had some issues that I had to deal with. Family issues, went through a divorce, lost my mom, other things like that. Work issues, legal issues that you know about, that we'll talk about some other time, that I had to deal with. And so I think for me, I probably didn't realize that it snuck up on me, right? Like this little guy that was behind me that I didn't see, like the one guy's on the shoulder saying do it, and one guy's saying don't do it. This guy was like, have a drink, bro, you'll be fine, you'll feel better. And so for me, it got to the point where, a bottle of wine a night and a couple of drinks was just no big deal. It was just normal. And I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
So I would use that as kind of my, hey, man, you're 180 pounds. You can't drink a bottle of wine. I can. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I noticed that we talked about this on the first series of the Reset series, where I said that I had started this journey of wellness, and it went back about 10 years. So for me, I think I noticed about maybe 5 years and 6 years into this journey that I was like, man, why isn't my stuff getting better? Like, my liver function tests aren't really that good. Maybe that's a concern. And my lipid panels aren't really that good. Maybe that's a concern. I'm doing all these things that I'm supposed to be doing.
You're still working out.
Yeah, light bulb. Maybe some things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing. So I think that, and then the combination of meeting my soulmate, which happened, 3-4 years ago, and getting married to her. But before we got married, her saying to me, hey, it was cool when we went down to Fort Lauderdale to go to Tortuga Music Festival. It was a 3-day weekend and we were ripping it on the beach and whatever, but you drink a lot.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, I don't know.
And she has something funny that she says to me, when we talked about this topic, and when we've talked about it, and when we do talk about it now, she's like, you always had something to celebrate. Like, oh, I had a good day today. I closed a deal, or I had a good workout today.
Yeah.
Or, my car started, or whatever it was that was, and I guess I just didn't really realize it, right? But I had somebody who was important enough for me in my life to take a look at my life and be like, man, I think I'm doing all the right things, but I'm really not. And here's somebody who just loves me and cares about me and wants to see me be the best version of me that I can be.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I got a fucking problem.
Yeah.
Like, I got to fix this.
Did you feel, and not to turn this into episode 2.
No, it's cool.
Dan is a recovering alcoholic, but did you kind of had that aha moment of like, maybe I do have I don't want to say a dependency, but like for some reason I do always have a drink in my hand, or like it seems like I'm always drinking.
Yeah, no, I think Sarah pointed that out for me. I think that was a big part of it, but I also think that like, we're human.
Yeah.
We've made mistakes,
yeah.
right? Have you ever tried to, and be candid, have you ever tried to blame that mistake on something? Like, oh, well.
I think it's human nature, right? At first,
So I think that, I don't think that I was making excuses for me not being where I wanted to be, but I think that when I was able to be completely honest with myself in the mirror and look at myself and my life, there were things that were not contributing to me being where I wanted to be.
The best version of yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you, we'll talk about that more later too, but I think as it relates to the things that we'll talk about on the Reset series, you're not fooling anybody else. If you're fooling yourself and you're not being honest with yourself, you're never going to get to where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you I work out 5 days a week and I crush an hour of cardio and I do X, Y, and Z. But if I'm lying to you, I'm really just hurting myself, right?
Yeah.
So what's the point? So as it relates to, that situation with alcohol, it wasn't serving me. It doesn't serve you. Sure, I'll be social and I'll have a drink with you. And, when we go to the Yellow Ribbon Fun Gala next year and I see you there, we'll knock back a drink. And there's nothing wrong with it. But for me to be doing it in excess, just wasn't serving me. And I realized that,
That's interesting. I think a lot more so now in society with social media, a lot of people want to show and promote, like, look at me, look what I do.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious, and I warn my kids about this too, because they'll be like, oh, well, like, Dad, look at this or look at that. I say, yeah, but you're just seeing one aspect of it. You're just seeing what they want to present to you.
Correct.
Of like, oh, this guy wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning and then does the ice bath and then journals and then meditates. And then, at 8:30, he has this amazing healthy breakfast. And then at 9, he closes this big deal.
Yeah.
That's just fucking smoke and mirrors, man. Like that. Maybe he does that every day, but what does he do? What does he really do every other day, like on social, that when he's not promoting that on social media, right? And I've always, you said it, like, this doesn't serve me. I'm the biggest proponent of that, of like, what does this serve me? Like, if I'm eating this right now, is this going to serve me later on? If I'm going to have this drink, is this going to serve me later on? And as I've gotten older, just being smarter and just more aware of it, of like, does this serve me? Am I do what I'm doing today? Is this going to serve my like longevity goals like later on? Like, if I take this, peptide injection, is this going to help me later on? Right? Like, is that going to serve me? It's all about serving the greater good of like my goals.
Yeah. And so quick question about that before we dive back into hearing your diet and nutrition cheats. I think that, or do you think that you answered this a little bit back on the first podcast, because you said that when you were a young athlete, you always had a vision to the future. But do you believe that, when you're young and you make that decision to be like, let me just run to the Chick-fil-A drive-thru and get a number 5 meal or whatever they call it, I don't know. Do you think you're thinking, oh man, this has got a lot of stuff in it that's really not good for me and I probably don't want this? Or are you thinking like, oh, well, it's protein and yeah, it's fried, but it's okay? Because as it relates to you getting older now, now you're thinking, okay, I have to make smarter decisions.
Yeah, even younger, I realized me personally, I've always been very goal oriented.
Yeah.
That in that example, and I do it now too. I would rather I don't want to say starve myself, be fasted, instead of stopping and getting something to eat at a drive-thru. Yeah. Right? Like I would rather not eat shitty food and just stay fasted, because I know that's going to serve me better later on. It's going to help my body break down whatever is in it right now, help break down, burn fat, do its like internal processes of like mitochondria repair, because I'm in a fasted state. Then, well, I'm hungry right now, let me just eat a little something, a snack. Or if I do, I'm smart about it. Like I'll grab some nuts and I'll snack on some nuts, or I'll have a protein bar. I'll get a protein bar at like the Hudson newsstand in the airport if I'm like traveling, instead of going to the Sbarro and getting a giant slice of pizza.
Better scan it first with the app host.
Yeah. Well, I will say you talked about the Yuka app, right?
Yeah.
I saw you whip it out the other day, and you were showing some people.
Rita.
You were showing Rita that, and I went home and I downloaded it, and I was scanning everything in my pantry, and I'm like, oh, this is what I eat. And I gotta say, once again, we're not supported by the Yuka app yet, but
but it's scary though, right? Like all the stuff and all the additives and all the things that
people just, I don't think, are naturally aware of that. Maybe more so now. People are learning more about it and becoming more savvy about like what they eat and put in their body.
So tell me about your breakfast, lunch, dinner routine, and about nutrition goals and
so like my
sugar.
Yeah, so like my big hacks or cheat codes that share to people, always have been pretty savvy and smart about what I eat. I've always thought of myself as an athlete. When I was an athlete, when I was a Green Beret, when I was in the military, and now. But I will say I used me getting injured as a big like reset and cleanse, because I knew at the time, once I got myself off all the pain meds, because that's part of my story too, of getting myself off all the pain meds that they were pumping into me, getting off of that, so that way I can focus on getting out of the hospital and learning how to walk again and everything else. I use that as a big reset. I stopped drinking coffee. I was always a big coffee drinker, even deployed as an SF guy, like living in this Afghan village as like an Afghan. I still had a jet boil. And I make coffee every morning in this French press. And, once again, alcohol is a big part of like the military culture. Coffee is a very big part of the military culture. It is what it is. Tobacco is a very big part of the military culture. I didn't really dip much in college. Every now and then. There's guys on my team that were like, constantly had, Copenhagen or Skull in their lip.
Yeah, spit through the helmet.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It makes it awkward.
Yeah. And then especially in the military, when you're just kind of sitting around, all right, well, I got time to kill. I might as well smoke. I didn't smoke, but put a dip in or something like that.
You ever smoke cigars?
I smoke cigars every now and then. What I don't like about cigars is how I then smell like a cigar for like 3 days afterwards, and it's all on your clothes and shit like that.
It tastes like somebody shit in your mouth when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. That too. But I use getting injured as a big like health reset, and so I wanted to wait like a full year before I started to drink coffee again. Before like I did any sort of like vices, I wasn't drinking any of that, and so that was like big for me to try and like. I was so focused on getting up and being the best like physical version of myself to like learn how to walk, because that was my biggest goal. Was I want to get out of the hospital. I need to learn how to walk. I'm so dedicated on that. Like an Olympic athlete, I just had the same mindset of like, all right, these gold medalist athletes are so focused on winning a gold medal. For me, my gold medal was I want to learn how to walk again. Yeah. And I need to be the best physical specimen of myself to do that. So I kind of did this big health reset. I watched that documentary where the guy ate McDonald's, Supersize Me, right? For like 30 days. And then he got real big into juicing and the whole juice cleanse. So I bought a juicer and I did the juice thing for like about like a month, and that's really all I could take.
It's a paperweight now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if we still have that juicer, but I did spend like $300 on it.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, so like that was big. But like nutrition wise now, like my meals, I try and eat like a decent small breakfast just to kind of like fuel myself. I try and eat only one big meal a day, which is usually dinner. Yeah. Which it may be vice versa. Something I read was you want to eat like a king for breakfast, like a merchant at lunch, and then a peasant at dinner, because then you're going to sleep on like with not as much food in your system, and you're almost like in this fastest state while you're sleeping. I try and do that as much as possible, but just with kids and everything, you know, sometimes my dinner is I eat my dinner and then I eat whatever chicken nuggets my kids didn't finish, because I also hate wasting food, right? I just, as the dad, you're kind of sampling or eating what they have. And so I have to make a very conscious, disciplined decision to maybe, you know, sometimes when we go out, I'll just get an appetizer because I know my kid's not going to finish their steak, right? So I am very disciplined and thoughtful and purpose driven in my like meal decisions, right? And I think that's like a great cheat code for people, is like, you know, if you go out with a family, especially here in the States, because the portions are so big, like you were talking about, like when you eat like big meals of food over in Europe compared to the States, is I just get an appetizer sometimes because I'm sitting with these 3 other people. I know they're not going to finish their meals. I'll just kind of sample, and that way I don't eat till I feel like a fat fuck, and then I get up out of the table and I'm like, I hate myself. I need to starve myself tomorrow, right? Yeah. And then, you know, I've tried to, because of the cleanse and everything else, and being smarter about like what's in our food here in the States versus elsewhere, and all the chemicals that they put in, like learning about high fructose corn syrup, and like just what a poison that is like to your body. I have made a very good conscious effort of cutting out as much sugar as possible, like in my diet. I use honey as a sweetener. I don't use any sugar in my coffee, which is funny. Like I just appreciate the bitter taste of coffee and what coffee like is, instead of adding like, you know, a couple of brown sugar packets into it like I used to, and then you have that crash and you're like, wait, why do I feel like shit? Well, it's because you put so much sugar into your drinks, right? I don't drink any sugar or any soda. Every now and then I'll have like a sip of like Guaraná when we go to like the Brazilian steakhouse for dinner, because my son loves that shit. You know, growing up, I loved Dr. Pepper. That was like, I just, you know, as a kid, you love Coca-Cola or whatever. I love Dr. Pepper.
The Mexican Coca-Cola is pretty good. It doesn't have the corn syrup.
But that's the thing. Like, sugar. If I have soda now,
good to taste, not good to consume.
Yeah, exactly. Like I try and go for the all natural. Yeah. And once again, the longevity, does this serve me? Yeah. I always think before I put it in my body, like, how am I going to feel after, right? And you have to learn that lesson the hard way. Like, you eat something and then you feel like shit, but you need to be smart enough to be like, all right, this isn't going to help me later on. I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow. I'm not going to have the 3 beers tonight because I know tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up all like cloudy and kind of fuzzy in the head. It's not going to serve me. So like, just nutritionally, I'm not on like some special diet. I'm not on the carnivore diet. I'm not on like a plant-based diet. Those are great, and I think they serve their purpose. But me personally, I also like to enjoy life, right? Like, I also love it when my wife cooks a big Italian meal. Like, I love eating. I do love eating. I love tasting food. I love sampling new food. But I'm just smart about it.
So what's a breakfast and a lunch and a dinner look like on a regular day, not a travel day?
Yeah, like, so I'll have, like, this morning had some espresso, no sugar. I ate half of an almond chocolate croissant that Gina bought at this like amazing bakery in Boca, And then, funny enough, I had a FroPro bar just like for some healthy kind of like protein and some healthy fats to kind of keep me going. I probably won't eat lunch. If I do, I'll kind of graze and snack on like some nuts, or maybe I'll have a protein bar. And then tonight we'll have, I don't know what dinner is going to be, but I'll eat dinner as kind of like a normal meal. And that's kind of it. And then the one thing I will say that I'm like pretty religious about, that like I will be like, you know, the one thing that I do diet wise is the first thing I put in my body every day is a giant cup of water, just because we're water based. I learned this, there's a guy named Pat McNamara, who's a former Delta guy, and he has his own podcast, and he does a lot of shooting schools, and the guy must be like, if he's listening, which he probably isn't, but maybe I'll send this to him. Maybe he's got to be, I know he's older than you, but he was an older Delta guy. The dude, talking of longevity, is like what I would love to be when I'm his age, right? He's still throwing around kettlebells. He's still moving. He's still running. He still has his legs. But I remember listening to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said the first thing he does every morning is he still has a 1-quart canteen, like old school canteen, and he throws that down every morning because he just knows that he needs to get like flush out whatever toxins were in his system. And I've just become more of a believer of how simple it is. But when I don't drink water first thing in the morning, like it takes me a little longer to wake up. I just don't feel like I have that extra step. So being able to suck down water like first thing is like my one like cheat code of like I got to do every morning.
That's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard it about, maybe not from him, but I don't remember who I heard it from, but it was a podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about how we like to have takeaways from the podcast, but the way I heard it was also, and it was based on some medical and scientific data where they said, you know, you're laying in a prone position, sleeping all night. And so, yes, your body is doing everything that it does throughout the night, and it's digesting everything and storing everything. But when you stand up and you become vertical, for lack of better explanation, because I'm not the scientific dude, you know, you kind of want to rinse everything down and out through your system, and, you know, through your large intestine, small intestine, colon, and push everything down. So any waste that accumulated overnight while you were sleeping or residual, I also do it, make sure that it's cold water, because I was told, and it makes sense to me, that it requires energy, even if it's a low caloric intake, for your body to bring the cold water back to body temperature versus room temperature water or even hot water. And
I think that kicks off your metabolic like system, and your body starts.
How much are you drinking in the morning? Like 12 ounces, 15 ounces?
Yeah, like a 12, 15 ounce, just like a cup of water. I'm not like chugging like a giant. We have, I don't know about your house, but I feel like we have like a whole collection of Stanleys between my daughter and my wife. But just like a normal cup of water to get it going. But I mean, like that's why when when you take a piss first thing in the morning, it's obviously full of toxins, right? It's dark yellow. It smells like urine.
You know, you had asparagus last night.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to flush that out, right? That would be like my one cheat code nutrition wise, is the water in the morning.
So have you heard this cheat code at the grocery store, where basically like I try and spend most of my time in the store on the exterior?
Yes.
I mean, like come in on the outside aisle, walk the entire back aisle, come down the opposite aisle, etc. Because everything that's in the middle is all the processed, ultra processed, everything else that you don't want. Now the exception would be, I got to go down the water aisle and pick up the Pellegrino, which you and I both enjoy. Speaking of that, what is your what do you think would be like your indulgence, or the one thing that you're like, man, I'm really good about it, but if you put this in front of me, and I'm going to say something, so you better be straight with me.
I'd say my one indulgence is, well, I guess there's a couple of indulgences. But it's funny, in our office out in Los Angeles in Van Nuys, the woman that runs our HR department, she's great at like stocking the office. She'll always go to Trader Joe's and like find like healthy snacks, but they're still like Lickies and Chewies. You know, they're still like chocolate covered stuff. My one big indulgence is chocolate covered almonds. And so I feel like I'm constantly snacking like a fucking
fiend.
I'm like nibbling constantly on chocolate covered almonds whenever I'm out there.
What were those desserts we got at that restaurant by your place?
Oh, alfajores. The dulce de leche.
But you can only do one of them, man.
Yeah, they're so
I instantly was like, boo! woo.
Yeah.
and I text Sarah and I send her a picture and she's like, yeah, bring a couple home for me.
Another one, especially just being down here since we're talking about the alfajores, is brigadeiros. The Brazilian little pastry, like
almost like pastelitos. I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a sucker for those too.
Yeah.
But once again, talking about, is this going to serve me? And like I'm disciplined enough and making the conscious decision of, all right, I'm going to have, one, maybe two brigadeiros. If I have 4 or 5, I can't do that, right? Yeah. And you learn that lesson the hard way.
And so coffee's still a part, or espresso at least, as a part of the daily routine, or is that occasional?
Yeah, it's the daily routine. Yeah. If I can, I try and do, we'll call it like a cleanse or a break from it a little bit, just to that way, because you build up a tolerance to it. So, one espresso or macchiato like in the morning turns into 2, which what I've started to do is in the afternoon, instead of coffee, I've switched to yerba mate, which I just feel like is a healthier, like longer caffeine boost, and I don't have that crash. And I recommend it to everybody that hasn't tried it. And I look ridiculous as if I'm some like make-believe Argentinian walking around with my mate and my thermos drinking this like a tea.
We'll ask Martine if you look authentic or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the yerba is something I'm a big believer in now too, which I actually got to make a run to the Latin market probably after this to grab some more mate before I head to Europe for a couple of weeks.
So you talked about what your routine is, breakfast and lunch, and then you kind of said for dinner it's just something healthy, but maybe some leftovers. But are you focusing on, like, I know my body needs more protein, less carbs? Are you aware, and do you make an effort to do things like healthy fats?
Yeah, of course, we're very good at just eating healthy overall. I try not to eat as many carbohydrates, but like I said, my wife is of Italian descent, so and we have basil out back, so she'll make pesto at least once a week. But she's pretty good at buying pasta that's made in Italy, obviously, because what they put in the pasta there is a lot different than pasta that you buy.
The type of flour,
all that. Yeah, she'll make pizzas sometimes, and it will be flour that I have to go to one of the Italian markets here specifically for flour that's produced or harvested in Italy, because it's just different than the flour here. We're eating fish at least once a week, salmon, all healthy fats. I try and stay more protein heavy than carbs overall for all the right reasons. It's just you can't eat such a heavy carb diet, especially here in the States. It's people talk about it all the time. Oh, I went to Italy, I was eating all the bread and pasta, and I didn't gain any weight. Yeah. Well, no shit. Like there's a reason for that, because it's illegal in Europe to put all the processed stuff that they put in here in the States. Now, granted, I also understand that we're feeding 300+ million people here in the States compared to 12 million people in Italy or whatever it is, 30 million people in Italy. So there's a reason they put all that the preservatives and additives in there. It's just that you have to make a conscious, disciplined decision if you want to be healthy. If you want longevity, you have to make the right decisions. At the end of the day, I always say it's on you, right? Like, you want to be the best version of Dan. Well, the beautiful answer, and it's so simple, is it's on Dan to make that decision. Nobody's forcing you to put the second alfajores in your mouth. Nobody's forcing you to choose the donut. It's you have to make the conscious decision to have the glass of water in the morning and to cut out sugar. Like, at the end of the day, it's just that simple.
What's your thought process on organic versus, I'm at the Publix or Whole Foods and I can pick this one or this one, and it's going to lead me to the question about people who might have the argument that, oh, bro, you run a private aviation company and you can afford to go to Whole Foods and buy clean. Not everybody can afford this, and I'm not saying that's a strong argument, but as it relates to organic versus non-organic, what's your thoughts on that? And then how do you regulate the financial aspects of it, right? Like, if I could, I'd eat the cleanest, best everything, like you said, Argentinian beef every night, but I can't buy a Wagyu every night from Argentina.
Well, I think it's a balance, because I also think if you're able to afford the healthier organic stuff, which, by the way, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest believer in that. I think some of that is just the commercial marketing of it being like organic. If it's not organic chicken breast, well, then I'm still gonna eat the chicken breast, right? Because I know, yeah, maybe there's some additives in there, but I think I'm also healthy enough and take care of my body enough that I could probably get rid of whatever is not serving my body, right? So I'm not so strict and not such a Nazi of like, well, this isn't organic, I can't eat that. You know, I don't flip the table and walk away. Like, what is this shit? Yeah. You know, or spit out the coffee because it's not like, you know, hand picked by some, you know, the Guatemalans I prefer.
Like the animal didn't eat it and then poop the seed out.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, if I can do that, great. But I do think that there is something to it where it does seem, and I'm sure there's science behind it too, it's more filling. Right, so I don't feel the urge to have to spend more money to buy the organic stuff just because it's more filling, you know, at least from a meal perspective.
Okay, so I'm going to start making a list of things where I'm going to start to change your viewpoint and your opinion on these things.
Yeah.
And as this goes on, we're going to look at
that's because you're such a number-driven guy.
That's true.
I'm more of like I'm more of just like
how you feel,
how I feel, yeah. Right? And if I eat it, I feel good. Then all right, this stays in the good circle. If I eat it and I feel like shit, it doesn't.
Let me put it to you in a different way.
Okay.
Because you touched on something it's a constant topic of discussion in our home. You said that, you know, you can't get it in Italy or overseas because it's illegal there, but it's legal here. How does that impact your opinion on what you just said about, well, you know, if I can buy it here and I feel good, then it must be okay for me, but yet, you know, and I forget the stat, but I'm going to be close to it, and if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. But let's say 50% of the things that you can buy in a grocery store here in the U.S., you can't buy them in grocery stores in Europe because they're illegal.
Yeah. So what do I do?
So no, but I guess the point would be, you know, let's take organic out of the equation, and let's just say, and where I'm going with this is, I used to be, not saying you are, but I used to be naive and thinking, well, my government, who I've worked for and served for and whatever, wouldn't let, you know, the FDA wouldn't let foods be on the shelf that aren't healthy for me. And if my kid wants Fruity Pebbles, I'm going to let her eat them. And then I look at what's in it and I'm like, oh man. And so I think, you know, for me, knowing the things that I know now and knowing how naive I was about those things and having been on this part of the journey, you know, at this point that we're at, and now moving forward with this journey with you, it's going to be fun to look at some of these things that we're talking about and do some of the research and say, man, you know, I used to think that it didn't matter if I bought organic blueberries or regular blueberries, but what I found out was that the pesticide that was used to kill the bugs that are in the blueberry patch that's getting sprayed on the fruit that I consume, even if I wash it, gets absorbed by the skin that's in the blueberries. And guess what? That shit causes cancer, and that's why it's illegal in Europe, and that's why, you know, I spent a lot of time in China, for example, right? Not picking on fat people. I'm a little overweight and I could lose some pounds, but, you know, you don't see obesity in China to the extent that you see it here in this country where, you know, we have an obesity rate that's off the charts. We have a pharmaceutical industry that is...
Just go to Disney. Like, and I'm not picking on people that are obese, but this is another impetus of why I'm such a believer in this, of why why you know, talking about in the Reset series and the blueprint and longevity and health, that I'm such a believer in this. And I was like, hey, this is a great idea. Let's do this together. You know, talking about we both served our country, right? We're both patriots. We're both big believers of the United States. And we've both traveled the world, you know, at least once over. It pains me to see how unhealthy we've become as a country. And I say Disney as a joke, but serious at the same time.
Don't get us sued, man. We just started this.
I know. It's not Disney's fault. It's there's a lot of people to point the blame at. Yeah. But you know, I sit there and I am, you know, either sitting in the wheelchair or leaning up against something if I'm walking around, and it pains me to see how many, I'll be politically correct about this, obese people or overweight people that there are walking around a park or even at the airport. Like you just see it. It is something, you can turn a blind eye to it, but it's the truth that we are, as a country, obese. And it pains me, and it shouldn't be that way. And, you know, the United States, we're such an example of everything else, and people want to come here for all the right reasons. And we are, as a country, I think, kind of like slowly killing ourselves in a way. And that's why it's important to have these discussions and be honest about it, of what is healthy, what works, why you should do the right thing, what is your blueprint, talking about longevity, biohacking, and everything. You know, people like Optimal Wellness Group and OWG, like tools out there to better yourself, because it's a fact that, you know, we're just a fat country, you know, and I lost my legs for the idea of the United States and helping people that needed help overseas. And you come back here and we're just sucking down giant sodium-filled, fat-filled turkey legs at the amusement park. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and I would never be the one to go up to somebody and be like, hey man, put the turkey leg down, you're killing yourself. That's just not me. But it does motivate me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Can I be an example to my kids? Can I be an example to others of like, hey, these are my cheat codes. These are things I'm doing right. This is how I feel healthy. Like, these are things you can do too. And once again, it's very simple. It's just a decision that you make, right? Like, in temptation is a bitch, but you can put the turkey leg down. You can put the alfajores down. Don't eat the brigadeiro. Don't drink the soda. Like, these are things that help.
So this is a tough question, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong, and it's not really even a political question, but do you think that the government in our country should have and take and accept more responsibility for this situation that we've created? And I bring it up because, you know, we keep going back to, well, it's not legal in Europe or in...
Do you bring it up because we're going to get RFK on here?
Maybe. Yeah. We'll see. You know, I mean, regardless of political affiliations or party affiliations or whatever, unequivocally, I can say, what's wrong with making America healthy? Whether or not that's a Trump-related slogan because it's a MAGA, MAHA, whatever you want to call it, but... You know, for me, it's certainly frustrating when you see, regardless of, you know, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whatever it is, you see the media attack somebody who, at least I'm not picking on him or his objectives or whatever, but hey, let's make America healthy again. Why not? I mean, we all want to live healthy, fulfilling lives, I would think. So the question was, you know, do you think that the government should take a more active role in it? And regardless of which position, well, let's see what your answer is, and then, you know, we can kick that one around a little bit. 100%.
I think that it is part of the responsibility of the United States government to care for its citizens. Obviously, this, you know, security, we both come from a military background, so like security is number one, but the health and wellness is just as important, right? Like, if you don't have healthy citizens, how can you provide security for the country? How can you develop the country? How can you continue to stay ahead in the world? When you have elements out there that we both know, we don't have to name the countries. Maybe one starts with the C and ends with Ina, but like, they are looking to do harm to you or affect you in some sort of security aspect in your global reach and your allies in the world. Yeah, like, the government needs to help the health. There's nothing wrong with making America healthy again. That should never be, yes, it is like the Trump side of things, but it shouldn't be like a political thing. Right. Everybody should want to make America healthy again. Like, why not?
So how would you respond if I'm the guy who says, yeah, man, but it's America, so if I want to chug a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew and a bag of Cheetos, you know, it's freedom, brother. It's like my, you know.
Which there are people out there that believe that. They're probably not going to be listening to this, but there are people that are like, yeah, this is what makes America great, is the ability to suck down a 72-ounce Slurpee.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is your individual. That is what makes America great. Yeah. That is your individual choice. However, you know, that's not what in my version or my ideal of what makes America amazing.
What's your thought on, so follow-up question to that topic. So,
but listen, there's a reason, not to cut you off.
No, go, man.
And I know we're going down a
rabbit hole
again. I think that we have such our diet here in the United States of America is so protein and fat driven. Like, what are typical American foods in your mindset? Like fried chicken, right? Like hamburger, hot dogs, steak, meat, more of like this type of heavy food, biscuits, gravy, bacon, eggs. It's not salad. When you think of an American diet, you don't think of like some sort of healthy vegetable dish. My idea and reasoning behind that is because we started off being a frontier in colonies, right? And so back in the day, the frontiersmen needed more fat-based, protein-based meals to get them through, fighting off the Native Americans that were here for the colonies, for the farms, not saying that they needed, for the land, like just the history of it, right? Yeah. They weren't thinking like, oh, I need this because I want to live longer and this is going to hurt my heart later on. They're out, like, they weren't sedentary. They weren't doing a 9 to 5. They needed that very caloric dense type of nutritional supplements to get them through their day, whether it was good or bad. Obviously probably not the best in hindsight. But we haven't adapted to that. We're still eating the same type foods and probably in heavier portions, right? So the guy that says, oh, this is what makes America great, like I get to suck down fried chicken and biscuits and gravy. Yeah, that's what made America great, and that fueled America in the 1800s, but you're not living like you were living in the 1800s anymore. Like, yeah, you can eat that, but you're not burning the calories that allow you to eat that. Correct. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so we have this uniquely American disease.
Yeah.
Which in our travels we've observed is one of the ways that we spread democracy.
Yeah. I'm going to bring you freedom.
I'm going to bring you freedom. And it's definitely
a McFreedom. We're going to
freedom.
Yeah, we're going to supersize it.
Going right where I'm going. So I think that, let's go out and then we'll go back in. So we have this lifestyle that is a very uniquely American lifestyle that is wrapped in this blanket of freedom. But what I'm thinking about and where I'm going with freedom is convenience and the pace at which Americans tend to live their lifestyle. So it's statistically proven that Americans work harder. Well, not harder. That's a measurement. Longer.
Yeah.
And more hours.
Yeah.
And for example, in Europe, where Gina's family's from and family's from, everybody's from, it's not uncommon for them to take the month off in the summer and everybody goes to the family house and the entire family is there. And they take a month off of work. And so where I'm going with this whole, let's zoom out and look at lifestyle, is that we created this lifestyle that demands convenience, which created a lifestyle that demands fast food, which created an entire industry where there was none 50 years ago, or certainly at the time that you're talking about. And with that lifestyle and the expectation that we've created for instant gratification comes the foods that make it easier, faster, quicker. Let's talk about microwaving your meals, which is incredibly unhealthy. And let's talk about all the processed foods that are out there that are incredibly unhealthy. And so there was a time in this country where that just didn't exist. And that type of lifestyle didn't exist from a convenience standpoint and from a lifestyle standpoint. So I think lifestyle contributes to, the demise of what we're talking about when it comes to nutrition, because while it is possible to make something healthy and nutritious, and even in the fast food concept, it's just not convenient and it's more expensive because the food won't stay fresh as long and it's going to require more labor. You can't have a machine that I just slap 10 frozen patties onto that spit out the other side in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the balance, right? We were talking about this the other day, where you were talking about a study that you read, once again, very big into studies and the numbers, of segments of like the Earth's population or cultures where they live to be, the average lifespan is like 90 years old, right?
Yeah. Over 100.
Yeah. And it's just interesting that I don't think that you mentioned any of when you were talking about the different areas of the world, like people and the things that they do, right? Like, so for example, I just remember that there was one area of like Italy where like in this one town, the longevity is like much longer than the rest of Italy, and like maybe like the longest in Europe. And it turns out because they all put the same olive oil and rosemary like in their entire cuisine, yeah. Right? And they studied that, and that was like that they found that out like medically.
Yeah.
I don't think in any of the cultures or the people that they talk about in that study that you were like quoted, was the United States.
You are correct. Well, so there is one in Loma Linda, California, but it was a concerted effort to build a community around embracing the qualities of what they called in this special was the blue zones, about these different places in Nicoya, in Costa Rica, in Sardinia, in Greece, in Japan. So it's interesting because I think the challenge now for the U.S. is, and I'm going to go even farther down the hole for a second, not only this lifestyle we've created, but now my question for you is, it's a big fucking industry, man.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got big food as the industry, and then you've got big pharma as the industry. So you've got this machine now that we've created where, big food, which is all the fast foods and all the processed foods and ultra processed foods that are trying to, feed hundreds of millions of Americans. And I'm not going to say that they're colluding or working in concert with big pharma, but you've got.
I'm a conspiracy guy. They
okay,
probably are.
So you've got big food.
Let me pull up the tinfoil hat.
Don't listen to my, working in concert. What are your thoughts on the fact that, I guess for me, what it comes down to, and it's a little bit sad, candidly, but greed is the biggest contributor to the demise of the physical well-being of our country, because you're surrounded by billions and billions of dollars for billion-dollar global corporations who stand to benefit by, sadly, making us fatter and sicker and more diabetes and more autism. My daughter's on the spectrum, and she wasn't even born in this country, but autism is on the rise in this country, and there's all these statistics that prove it. So, what are your thoughts on the fact that here we are trying to make America healthy again, but we've got this massive David versus Goliath, situation that we're running into against all these big companies who are going to be like, yeah, we want you to go be healthy, but fuck off, we're making a lot of money.
Well, I don't have the exact one word answer for that, and this is probably a good ending point for this episode. But I think that you can put together the blueprint, you can put together a plan to not fall victim to the cycle of greed, like you're talking about, that drives, big pharma, telling farmers to put this pesticide on there, or companies pushing supermarkets to push Fruity Pebbles over the healthy whole grain stuff. You're talking about the supermarket. Why is it that the sugary stuff is eye level, but maybe the healthier stuff is down below? Or they push unhealthy foods for whatever the reason may be, right? And conspiracy theory or not conspiracy theory. But people can put together the plan. People have cheat codes. People that have kind of figured out a way to live healthy, more fulfilling lives and have longevity in their life. There is a way to do that, right? And it comes down to meeting doctors at OWG, listening to a podcast like this, reading books like you were talking about, and figuring out blue zones to kind of beat the system in a way, right? To put together your health plan and figure out what right looks like for you for a longer, healthier life. I think that's really what it is.
So last question as a plug for the show and as a closing for this. We believe that information is pervasive, right? It's in the palm of our hands. You can access any topic on anything you want. I Googled to see when the Panthers game was.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's a question of information and getting this information out to people do you believe that maybe people just don't know, or do you think they're just hitting the easy button and saying, well, I know I shouldn't have the 2-liter Mountain Dew and Doritos, but it tastes good and it satiates me and it makes me happy? And if so, does that give us a basis to not only continue what we're doing with the podcast, but to dive deeper to try and reach more people to say, hey, maybe you don't know you're not making a healthy decision with, the choices that you're making, and here's why.
Well, I think it's kind of both, right? I think humans want to be comfortable and feel good. And it's human nature to do the easy thing and push the easy button. But I think with a lot of this, a lot of people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And, I didn't know about a lot of the nutritional stuff I do now. I had to learn about it. You have to educate yourself, and it's great that you have all this stuff in the power of your hand, but there's also a lot of noise out there that you kind of have to filter through, and being able to tune into stuff like the Reset series, and helping give people, you know, a quick little cheat code like we were talking about of like what works for me, what works for you, what's been medically proven. I think that helps people build a foundation to their plan.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, dude. Man. This has been a great, good ending point.
Yeah. Sounds good. See you next time.
All right, dude. All right. 50.